All right, welcome back to the Homestand Show. Time to talk some baseball. The Blue Jays win another series, this time over the Yankees. And tonight they kick off a new game series against the Chicago White Sox. And we're now joined by Andrew Stoeten of the batflip.ca. Andrew, the first turn through this rotation wasn't very good, but the latest one has been excellent. What's changed with these Jays starters?
I think there's been a little bit of changing of pitch mixes, maybe for some guys. I know that Jose Barrios is really focused on his slurve, is what they call it now, because that's like the one pitch that really seems to work for him. And I think he was at like 50% usage of it in the last game, and that seems to have just helped him, one, get away from the fastball, which last year was just getting hit very, very hard, and just giving him a pitch that he can kind of trust and has been painting the edges with. I mean, the other guys, I think it was more that the starts before were mirages a little bit, where it looked like Alek Manoah was struggling or Kevin Gausman was going to struggle. There were runs in those games where they looked like their usual selves, and I think in both cases they kind of didn't answer the bell very well in the start of the game, and it looked like it was a worse outing than it was. I mean, the results were bad, but in terms of like thinking about long term, what those kind of outings for those guys would mean, so they're, I think, going to be fine. Barrios is very interesting. Chris Bassett kind of looked like Chris Bassett, though there was a little bit of a tough start for him as well. And then Kikuchi is just, a complete wild card, and has looked very good so far, but I don't think anybody's ready to like put their faith in him just yet.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, but what is the biggest relief so far, do you think, for Blue Jays management? Is it Manoah's last outing? Is it Kikuchi's consistency? Is it Bassett or Barrios, finding some semblance of form?
I mean, I can't speak for them, obviously, but for me, I would expect it's probably Manoah. I mean, I know that there's a level of confidence there that's really high, but seeing some of the velocities being down, just seeing the way that he was rattled a little bit on opening day in St. Louis, which kind of, he didn't have a great start in the playoffs, and maybe that's something to be concerned about. And having him sort of round into form and look like the guy that they need him to be at the front of that rotation is probably the biggest thing. Like I said, I don't think there was much worry about Bassett or Gausman, and then the other guys who just you're hoping for the best. You're tinkering until something works.
There's a report out right now that Nate Pearson is being recalled from AAA Buffalo. If that's the case, what does he bring to this Jays rotation?
Well, he'll be pitching out of the bullpen for one, so we're not sure yet. As we're recording this, who's going to be going the other way. I'm hoping it's not Zach Pop, because he's been really good, but he's sort of the obvious guy because he has options. So that could be a controversial thing that will crop up once we learn what happens there. But Pearson has been really dominant in AAA. I mean, there's a big jump between AAA and the majors, but we've seen him be a dominant reliever in the big leagues before at the end of 2021. He's just had such trouble staying on the field. But the stuff is there, especially in like the short stints that he's going to be pitching out of the bullpen. I think he's struck out 16 of the 35 batters that he's faced in Buffalo so far. The ERA is really low, few walks, but like just really not giving up anything. And that's something that I think this bullpen needs right now. There have been some shaky performances, beyond, I mean, even Jordan Romano, but beyond, Romano and Eric Swanson. I think that a little new life in the bullpen was probably a good idea at this point. We'll just see who has to be removed in order to make that happen.
Jays coming off a 5-4 record over the last 9 games. Really tough stretch against the Yankees, Astros, and of course the Rays. Schedule kind of lightens up now. Do you feel the Jays are not primed to kind of gain some ground against Tampa Bay and really go on a nice run right here?
I mean, that would require Tampa to start losing, which is a tough ask at this point. But yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, the Mariners are good. They're coming in on the weekend. The White Sox are such a disaster. It's weird. They were a trendy pick to win the American League Central last year, and now they've started terribly, and I think that this is a real opportunity in these next 3 games to sweep a team, you can never count on. But I mean, that's sort of where we're at here. And I think anything less than that would probably be slightly disappointing. But yeah, the Rays are so good. The Yankees, as we saw, the Jays played them tough all weekend and did really well to win that series. Probably could have won all 3 games, but it's just going to be relentless all year, I think, in the American League East. So yeah, anytime that they can play a team like the White Sox and even the Mariners and just bank a bunch of wins there, they're going to have to do it. I mean, it's really meaningful. I think every single game this year, it's going to be kind of stressful and like I say, relentless, but it should be fun too.
Yeah, I mean, on that, you mentioned that the pitching's looking better right now and big numbers offensively. Where should Jays fans focus their anxiety right now?
Great question. I mean, I think the bullpen is an issue, of course. Even when Jordan Romano doesn't look right, which he did in that one game against the Yankees on Saturday, it can be tough for them. I mean, he's sort of their rock back there, and Eric Swanson's looked good, but Garcia has had a blow up, and that's kind of the thing the bullpens do, obviously. But yeah, seeing a guy like Pearson come up, that would be him and Pop becoming like really legit elite back end bullpen guys would be huge for them. And that's, until that happens, I think there's some anxiety there. I think a lot of people are looking at George Springer, which I don't think they should. He's kind of scuffling a little bit at the start of the year, but hitting the ball really hard, or what is still able to strike the ball really hard. And a lot of his underlying numbers, I think, look better than the guy that a lot of people are talking about. Like maybe they should drop him in the lineup a little bit, which to me is a bit ridiculous. I think Springer is, built to be the leadoff hitter, and give him a little more time, and he will look like the guy that you expect him to be.
Yeah, Andrew, I feel like this Jays team deserves a lot more credit. I mean, they started this season on a 10-game road trip, yet they're 13-9. They've won every series bar one, 16 of 22 games on the road. They have to go through the Rays and the Yankees already, which is obviously a difficult series for them. I just feel like this is a team that can win even when they're not playing their best ball and the rotation's not at their best. Have you seen any differences of this team as opposed to last season?
I mean, I think Matt Chapman is the big one probably at this point, right? Like he's just looked like a completely different guy, not just in terms of like the results, but in terms of, trying to go to the opposite field, being really deliberate about that. The strikeouts are down. I think he's kind of fallen off a little bit since the start of the year, but he couldn't have not done that because he was just so on fire right out of the gate. But in a walk year, which is huge for him, obviously, he's really put the work in, it seems, in the offseason, and has the power to go deep the opposite way, which he's never really taken advantage of in his career, or at least hasn't for the last few years. He's become more of a polar-oriented guy. And I think made the decision to go back to what he was doing that was very successful in like 2018, 2019, which is use the entire ballpark a little bit more. And he's showing that he's absolutely capable of doing that. And that's really elevated the middle part of that order in a way that for a guy who was here last year to just come in and looks like you're not missing a beat with Varsho and Chapman, and having lost Teoscar Hernandez and Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
Not to be too negative here, but with Whit Merrifield and the way he's playing right now at second base, how does Kevin Biggio get any playing time whatsoever at the moment at second base?
Well, a lot of people will tell you that it's absolutely fine that he doesn't. I mean, poorly executed bunt there the other day. And he hasn't looked great so far, but he really hasn't had a lot of runway to get going. And yeah, I don't know. Like Merrifield, I don't think is the guy that a lot of Jays fans maybe believe that he is, because he came in, he was really hot in September. He started pretty well this year. If you look at his, track record as a whole, like the broader numbers, it's been a decline pretty steadily for the last 4 years. He doesn't hit the ball particularly hard. He's a speed, defense, versatility guy, great kind of bench piece guy. But right now he's the best option that they have, I think, at second base. So yeah, Biggio's just going to get, the odd right-handed starter, which I think they'll sit Merrifield for. And he'll just have to do well. He'll have to wield the bat exceptionally well there, and then otherwise just sort of find himself in the lineup the odd day, every few days, which is going to be tough for him to get his bat going, I think. So I'm not sure how he exactly does that without beyond just start hitting the ball. But I don't know if he's earned the opportunity to do any more than that.
So Charlie Montoyo returns to Toronto with the White Sox. How would you look back on his time with the Jays?
Wow, big question. Because I mean, I think that it's so weird how it didn't work out. It's so weird how they really were sold on him and really felt that he was the guy to sort of help the team grow into being professionals and winners, and a team that should be ready to take the next step. And I think a lot of people thought at the time, when he was hired, that it might not be with him, but the way that it sort of ended was interesting, with him sort of losing the room a little bit, and the team really not growing into that mature team as quickly as maybe they thought they would. And that's been sort of a thing we heard all off season about changing the culture or getting serious or whatever it was. Which I mean, I think a lot of it is probably unfair to Charlie. Like he was fine. He was never necessarily comfortable with the media, which I don't think ever helped his case. I don't think that he had great teams really until about 2021. So some of the decisions that he had to wear as manager were just a consequence of not having the horses really. But I don't think that anybody is going to be wishing, pining for him to be back on the Blue Jays bench either. I hope the reception's relatively warm, or not, at least not negative. But but yeah, it was a strange trip. They really should have made the playoffs in 2021. I think is maybe.
Yeah, so Jays fans shouldn't be expecting maybe a montage for Charlie Montoyo.
Oh yeah, I bet they will.
Not. Yeah,
You never
bet they
know.
will.
Okay, with that said, John Schneider, he replaced him. Do you think Schneider's the right guy to lead this team to hopefully a World Series?
I mean, what do I know? But he certainly seems like a guy that they feel very, very comfortable with, and is knows the organization really well. Obviously, been here forever. Just maybe fits better with some of the bigger voices that sort of came into the clubhouse last year, right? Like Matt Chapman is a perfect example of a guy who has those leadership kind of abilities and qualities that I think the Blue Jays have been looking for a long time, but maybe didn't quite jibe with the way that I can't put words in Chapman's mouth, but some of the guys, as much as fans did, I'm sure bristled at the home run jacket and the seeds and some of that stuff that was going on that was so fun and people enjoyed watching. But then you hear about the seriousness stuff and how they wanted to sort of refocus and pay attention to detail, bringing in a guy like Kiermaier, bringing in a veteran like Belt. Maybe it was, I don't know if it's Schneider in particular or if it's just a new voice was needed, but I think it seems like if he fits quite well to the kinds of guys that they have here and the things that they're trying to do in terms of tightening that stuff up and taking that next step.
One of the biggest takeaways I took from this series against the Yankees was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. seemed to relish playing at Yankee Stadium and playing that villain role in New York and beating the Yankees. And of course he made those comments in the offseason say he would never want to play for the Yankees. What do you make of Vladdy kind of taking on that villain role in the Bronx?
It's great. It's so weird because it's like against type for him, right? Like he's just such a big, fun-loving guy. Like one of the things that you would kind of wished early on that he would stay at third base for longer, that they would think that he could handle it defensively. But then seeing him at first base, just greeting everybody there, backslapping, having a nice time. I mean, that's a fun aspect of the whole Vladdy experience. And so to see him embrace being the villain is really interesting. But I mean, if it's propelling him to do the things that he's been doing in the Bronx, be a villain in more places, Vladdy, because that he's been excellent there. Every time, not just this weekend, but every time he goes to the Bronx, he seems to do a really, big hits all the time, and just looks like the guy that we expect him to be, which wasn't necessarily the case last year, but this year has been real good. So yeah, it's they're going to play him a lot. He's going to see them a lot for a lot of years. So if that helps propel him, I'm all for it.
Andrew, I have to ask you, did you throw on that Ajax jersey, Ajax kit, because you're coming out with the great James Sharman today?
I mean, I just wear this around the house, but yeah. That's I knew Sharman would get a kick out of it.
That's a nice kit.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah,
Oh,
no, Stoeten's a big Eric Ten Hag fan.
Oh,
Yes.
I see. Okay,
Yes,
are you United? Andrew's
Me?
United.
Yeah.
No, I'm
No.
an Ajax. I'm an Ajax fan. I don't.
Oh, nice. I love that. All right, Andrew, thank you so much. Hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely, boys. Anytime.